my friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Three Pillars course. My name is Apprentice L. Today, we're going to be discussing the three pillars that make up the Jedi practice. If you have not yet, I encourage you all to take some note-taking devices, maybe a notepad on your computer or a written if you prefer. This will also be recorded and posted on the Lighthouse YouTube channel, and I appreciate you all being here. My final ask is if you have not, can you please mute yourself? And if you have questions, feel free to chime in at any point. Let me just make sure I can see everybody right over here. All right. I will periodically be reading the chat, but I may not see it right away. Okay. So as I said, my name is Apprentice L, and this is the lecture series on the three pillars. Pillar number one is the Force. Pillar number two is knowledge. And pillar number three is self-discipline. They are very specifically in that order. And during this talk, we will discover why. I'd like to start everybody off with the Jedi Code. So if you wish to recite, please follow along, either out loud or within yourself. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony.
There's no death.
So as we discussed, pillar one is the Force. And a reminder before we proceed. Our most sacred principle regarding the Force. No one can tell you what it is to you. That is yours. What I can offer here is a framework, a starting point. Where it leads is yours to discover. The Force is the most misunderstood pillar, partly because the fiction invites misreading, and partly because genuine spiritual ideas resist easy summary. In Jedi realism, the Force is balance and interconnection. Not balance as something to be achieved, but as the fundamental nature of reality itself. Consider the ocean. It does not strive towards wetness. Wetness is not the goal. It simply is that. The Force is the same. It simply is balance, the undercurrent, the underlying current, rather, flowing through all living things, visible only in its effects, felt most clearly when we stop fighting it. What matters within this tradition is the orientation. A practitioner develops a genuine relationship with something larger than their own ego. They learn to recognize the Force not as a concept to be understood intellectually, but rather as a reality to be lived. This is why the Force comes first among the pillars. Before you can learn well, before you can discipline yourself with any durability, you need a why. You need a North Star that does not move when your circumstances do. So why is the Force the first pillar? So we've just discussed the unmoving star, the why. But why do you need a why? Without that grounding, everything else becomes fragile. Discipline collapses into willpower. Willpower runs out. What's the best example of that we can think of? I would evoke New Year's resolutions. On January 1st, I'm going to be in the gym every day. That's it. No more messing around. A new year, new me. And then what happens by January 6th? It's a ghost town. Willpower runs out. Study becomes a collection of ideas with nothing to apply them towards. The Force pillar gives the other two pillars something to stand on. Across centuries and cultures, human beings have arrived at a strikingly similar recognition that reality has an underlying nature, that living in accord with it produces wisdom and peace, and that resisting it produces suffering. Differing traditions have named this differently. The Jedi name it the Force. Remember, these are not borrowings from one another. They're independent witnesses to a similar truth. These ideas are not Star Wars ideas, they're human ideas. What any serious practice of self development eventually reaches, regardless of the vocabulary used to describe it. That's why it's possible to be a Christian Jedi. It's possible to be a Hindu Jedi, a Buddhist Jedi. For the Jedi, what matters is that a practitioner has established a genuine relationship with something larger than their own ego. But a relationship isn't just a belief you hold, it's something that shows up in how you live. So, what does that actually look like? It looks like meditation, the discipline of sitting with what is, of observing the mind without being swept away by it. It looks like humility, the recognition that your individual perspective is partial, that the universe is not arranged around your comfort. And by extension, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you, to me. It looks like attention, a quality of presence that notices what's actually happening rather than what you expected or what you feared. And it looks like responsibility, the awareness that your actions ripple outward and touch the lives of those around you, and that a Jedi moves through the world with that in mind. Perhaps most importantly, it looks like the willingness to be moved, to trust the current of life, even when it carries you somewhere you hadn't planned. This is where we'll pause and have our first reflection. Without the Force, our knowledge and discipline have no deeper spiritual anchor. And so I would open this question up to everybody in the room. Regarding Pillar 1, the Force, where in your life are you fighting the current rather than reading it? What would it mean to trust the carrying? And please, anybody can feel free to chime in when they're ready. Go ahead, Reinar.
So I think one place that just a minute, I thought I muted my phone. There we go. Okay. All right. One place that I'm not sure I'm fighting it, but do I think I might be fighting it a little because there's a bit of a trust issue. So recently there was a development with my healthcare. The clinic that basically serviced all my providers, dental, primary, etc., psychiatry, everything. State has pulled funding. So I am now in a bit of a bind, and I have been questioning why has this happened without there was no prior given warning for any of this. Just I've been questioning rather than trusting things are going to work out and mate and seeing all this, I'm like, it's not the first time things have happened and I've questioned it. Won't be the last. I think it's time to stop fighting and trust.
I'm sorry for the struggles that you're having.
Thank you.
I appreciate your willingness to accept the current flowing you in a direction that works well for you. You'll see later in this talk that we're going to get to the third pillar, which is self discipline. And I think that that can provide some wisdom as well.
Okay.
But I appreciate that you are allowing life to carry you where you need to go and your willingness to show up here in good faith. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time stuff has happened, and won't be the last I'm coming to realize, so I think it's time I start trusting the process. Force has a plan. What it is, who knows, but some of it will come clear soon. I feel something's coming, something good.
And trusting in yourself to do what's best for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm already on top of that as well. Currently reached out to a number of different places and waiting to hear back.
Good for you. Well done. Well done. Would anyone else like to answer? The two questions are also up for uh, discussion as well. The second question being, how do you most connect with the force as you define it? And the third question being, attunement shows up as attention, humility, and the willingness to be moved. Which of those three is most underdeveloped in you? And what might it look like to strengthen that? And you can use the raising hand function, or you can just unmute your mic and answer. Good, Reiner.
If no one else is gonna answer, then may I?
Please.
So, how do I connect with the force as I define it? So, prior to joining the community, I knew there was something. I never put a much of a label on it because I didn't really have one that felt right. But after joining the community, I'm like, I have a label now that fits the force. And because I have certain abilities that others don't. So, two particular abilities of force powers, as I call them, are I have the ability to commune with nature and the animals around me, and I can sense, like, just sense stuff even from distances. When I was younger, back when my grandparents died, I felt a shift just in myself. Something happened, and I had gone to school that day. When I got back to my grandparents' house, because at the time the ride service didn't, we were outside the zone that was provided, but my grandparents were in the zone. So when we, so when me, so when I pulled up with the ride service, I'm like, okay, my mom's boyfriend's car, that's normal, but the fact that my aunt and uncle who were out of state from Virginia was there when they only came for Christmas and Fourth of July, I was like, something's off. It was the middle of February, and I knew. And ever since I was younger, I knew I had that ability, but didn't. As of recently, I've started to find those abilities by the Force. And as for the next question, I would say probably humility is the most underdeveloped. I definitely have attention. Um, Definitely have a good paying attention. Now, as long as I'm on my medicine and don't forget it, but that's not really much of an issue anymore. And the willingness to be moved, I mean, it's developed not the same as attention, but out of the three, humility is definitely, I would say, the most underdeveloped. I have been, I think, overly proud on certain things that it might have been better to be humble. And I guess what it would look like to strengthen it is one step in the right direction would be saying thank you rather than I know.
Mm. And then you're going to like the second part of this talk.
Okay.
You'll see why in a minute. Thank you
Okay.
for
I
your
mean,
answers.
hey, I like all this. This is good. This is what I sign up for, discussions like this to better myself and prove my connection to the Force.
Before we move on, would anybody else like to answer any of these questions?
To be honest, I'm just contemplating on the questions at the moment.
And just as a reminder, these will be available to you if you're not ready to answer yet, if maybe you don't have an answer at all, or maybe you want to review later. This is being recorded and will be available. So feel no pressure. All right. I'm going to move us on to the next part. Pillar 2 is knowledge. This is a quote from Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Suspend your judgment, and every being has something to teach you. What does it mean to pursue knowledge? Just making sure we didn't skip. We did skip. There we go. The second pillar is knowledge. And in some ways, it is the most straightforwardly democratic of the three. You don't need a community to pursue it necessarily. You don't need a teacher, a rank, or permission. Just the willingness to keep learning and the honesty to recognize how much you do not yet know. Jedi realist practice is unambiguous in the centrality of study. To deny further education, the tradition holds, is to allow ignorance to take hold, and ignorance, more than any external adversary, is what leads a person from the path. This is not only an intellectual commitment, but also a moral one. A Jedi who stops learning is, in a gradual way, becoming less capable of the service the path demands. Ignorance causes harm, wisdom reduces it. It's in our code. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. What does it mean to pursue knowledge in the Jedi sense? And the answer is wider than most people expect. Philosophy, including Stoicism and existentialism, provides tools to understand the human condition and to meet it with clarity. Science, particularly psychology, neuroscience, and biology, illuminates the instrument you inhabit and the forces that shape it. History reveals patterns of human behavior that repeat across millennia, and that you are not exempt from repeating yourself unless you study them. Theology and comparative religion, explored not to convert but to recognize, show that every tradition has been wrestling with some questions and has arrived at partial answers worth knowing, and of course, your own interests. As Master Qui-Gon said, remember, suspend your judgment, and every being has something to teach you. I have something to learn from every person in this room, every person watching this video, every member of that Discord server, regardless of their cultural background, their age, their sex, gender, etc. I have something to learn, and you have something to teach. And then there's the knowledge that comes from experience, from honest observation of your own patterns, from genuine attention to the people around you, from willingness to be wrong and to update. So there's a distinction worth drawing between knowledge and wisdom. This is another question I'm going to pose to everybody here. What, to you listening, is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? What's the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
For me personally, I would say to understand sorry, the understanding of one's ignorance is wisdom, but then to learn about what you're ignorant about is then the knowledge.
I like that. I like that very much. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to answer? Go ahead, Rhino.
So for me, I would say the difference for me is knowledge. Knowledge comes from learning. Wisdom, I would say wisdom comes from experience.
I like that.
You can be knowledgeable about any subject you want, but at the same time, unless you actually experience and practice what you learn, what you read about, put it into a practical aspect, you're it's nothing more than I mean, I compare when that happens, I compare it to reading for the heck of it. I mean, like, I know there's things that are read for fun, but when you're reading about specific topics trying to learn, as you actually put that into a practical sense, then you're just wasting your time and anyone else's time that's trying to teach you.
So you're saying knowledge that's not applied is knowledge wasted?
Yes, knowledge that is not applied is knowledge wasted.
Interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing it.
Hmm. And
Whenever you
yes,
see me
words
looking
of
up over here.
wisdom
Oh, go ahead.
that have stuck with me from Star Wars is I think one thing that has really stuck with me is the sorry, I had it in my head and then I uh
I can answer while you're trying to recall. There's actually I have a whole list pulled up of just bar
mhm.
after bar. One comes from Kyle Katarn. He specifically says, "No one said that being a Jedi is glamorous." I find that that one sticks with me a lot when I get frustrated with the path.
That yeah, that is true. Yeah, no, I agree. Being a Jedi is not glamorous. I think one thing that has stuck with me is Qui-Gon's words to Anakin before they departed his home in Tatooine. When he goes, Anakin, being a Jedi, it's not a, it's, I'm not going to quote this quote for quote because it's been a while since I've seen the movie, but being a Jedi, it's not an easy path. It's a hard life, often without reward or success. Like, it's that's just like what you said, like how Katan basically said that in less words. Being a Jedi, it's not glamorous because it's not meant to be. When you're a Jedi, your own success doesn't matter. How you help people and their successes, that's what matters.
I think both things can be true. I think our own successes do matter,
I
but they
mean,
matter
our
in
own
a
successes do matter, but what I mean is, like when we're helping people to achieve their own success, then sometimes you gotta step back and think. Like sometimes there's people who step back and oftentimes speak about their own success so much to a degree that it overshadows the person they're trying to help and their success.
that
So
goes back to our
that's what I meant. You gotta keep in mind when you're helping someone achieve their dreams and goals. It's fine to talk about your own experiences with your success, but just don't make it about
humility.
yes, humility. Exactly. Exactly.
So going to the comment section, Bodhi mentioned regarding the difference between wisdom and knowledge. I said knowledge is more academic, whereas wisdom is experienced either firsthand or through others. Both are needed to navigate that particular topic. I don't believe either is wasted unless they're not examined. I like that. Knowledge and wisdom examined. That's heavy.
That's
Examined.
heavy. I like it. It's heavy, but it's good. That's, yeah. Okay.
Uh, Harbard, Harbarder says arrogance versus humility, where the spotlight belongs. Amen. Amen. Rebel Scum said the difference between knowledge and wisdom, as I read years ago. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't add it to a fruit salad. That's great.
I mean,
Knowing what a
that's
thing,
true. That's true. I like that.
mm. Knowing what a thing is and how to utilize the thing is the difference between success and a second attempt. I really like that. I'll have to.
I like that.
Do you know where you got that quote from? I really appreciate that. I gotta find that book.
Yeah, I gotta see if there's other quotes like that because I'm curious now.
The tomato quote, yeah. That's great. That's
Yes,
very funny.
yes, yes, the tomato quote. Yes,
All right.
I
In the
like that.
meantime, I'm going to move on to our next slide here.
And I'm gonna.
Knowledge in the Jedi sense is the development of understanding that changes how you live, not merely what you know. Knowledge is what you have learned. Wisdom is knowing what to do with what you have learned, when to apply it, how to apply it, and when to set it aside because this particular situation requires something beyond what any text has told you. Jedi realism pursues both, but wisdom is the horizon. The purpose of study is to become more capable of right action, more able to serve, more equipped to meet the complexity of life with clarity rather than confusion. A practical note: intellectual humility, as we were just discussing, is the fullest expression of the knowledge pillar. The more genuinely you pursue understanding, the more vividly the edges of your knowledge become apparent. That awareness of how much remains unknown and unresolved is the mark of someone actually inhabiting rather, the pillar. The best question that we can ask ourselves regarding the pillar of knowledge is, what don't I know? So this is reflections on pillar two. Without knowledge, our connection to the force lacks direction and wisdom. This lecture distinguishes knowledge from wisdom, knowing things versus knowing what to do with what you know. Where in your life do you have knowledge you haven't yet converted into changed behavior? What's the gap? And I can answer one right now. I know that there are certain changes in my own diet that I need to make to live a healthier, happier life for myself. And yet, I love carbohydrates. I just love eating carbs. I do. I'm being totally blunt and honest with you guys. I know that I need to eat a little healthier, maybe have a little less sugar. And that is something that I need to put into practice that will help increase my life, that will make me feel better, happier, healthier. And so maybe I'm not necessarily applying that knowledge, I'm not turning it into wisdom, but I do know it. So let me extend that question out to anybody who wants to answer. Where in your life do you have knowledge you haven't yet converted into changed behavior? And feel free, if you don't want to use the voice feature, feel free to type. Uh, while I'm waiting, I'm going to read the comments. Rebel Scum, regarding the tomato comment earlier, this is who wrote the quote. The famous quote was coined by British journalist, musician, and broadcaster Miles Kington. While it is frequently misattributed to others like rugby player Brian O'Driscoll, Kington is widely credited with originating this clever distinction between fact and practical judgment. Harbarder said, or what should be known, when awareness and even ignorance have their place beyond a book, beyond learning by rote. Interesting. Ignorance has its place. I'll need to sit on that. I'll need to sit with that. Ignorance has its place. You know, they say ignorance is bliss. I suppose that there is a reasonable application for that. Ignorance has its place. I don't know that I've ever thought of it like that. You've given me something deep to explore. I'll have to explore that offline. For those just joining, these are the questions we're currently reflecting on regarding Pillar 2, which is the knowledge pillar. Question number 2 is intellectual humility is described as the mark of someone truly inhabiting this pillar. What's an assumption or belief you hold that you haven't examined recently? What would an honest examination require? And question number 3, study is described here as a moral act. The code tells us that ignorance can cause harm, right? There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. Is there an area of your life where you've been avoiding knowledge because what you'd learn would require you to change something? What is it? These are some heavy questions, so I'm going to give everybody just a moment. Sometimes not knowing is all you need to know. Ignorance has a place for sure. That's a fascinating thought. I think I need to sit with that. Huh.
Hmm.
Middling wise should each man be, never overwise. His fate let no man know beforehand, for thus he lives his life most free of care. A wise man's heart is seldom glad if he is truly wise. I like that. These are really
I
good. You guys
like
are
it.
coming out with some bangers. I like this.
Yeah, they are.
Very good. Very good. All right. So these questions are free for anybody to jump out at. If something, if an answer comes to you that you want to bring, please do. You
I
can either type it
think
in chat.
for
Hmm.
I think for the first question, where in my life do I have knowledge but I haven't converted it into change behavior? I think one place that I'm gonna start doing my best to put into practice is saying thank you rather than the smug.
Mm. So the knowledge that you want to be more humble and show more humility, and the gap is
Yes,
actually doing it.
yes, I
Mhm.
have the knowledge, and I think it's time. I've got the knowledge. It's time to live by what I believe and start practicing it.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah.
I want to bring question
So,
3 to the table again. Study here is described as a moral act. The
hmm
code tells us that ignorance can cause harm. Is there an area of your life where you've been avoiding knowledge because what you'd learn would require you to change something? That's a heavy one. Is there an area of your life where you've been avoiding knowledge because what you'd learn would require you to change something?
I don't think there's anywhere in particular that I've been avoiding knowledge because it would require me to change something. I'm trying to think if there's anything currently. I'm pretty open about learning, so
Memento
actually, I
says,
think there might be something. Actually, I hadn't thought of this before. I think it's more on a subconscious level I'm doing it. And I think I'm actually starting to realize this. It just popped into my head. So currently, something I am doing is working towards my GED. And the last portion is math.
mm,
Currently, I am working with my uncle who is retired NASA.
it's pretty cool.
And at first, I thought it was just I was busy, but I'm starting to wonder maybe there's more to it. Um, he sent me homework back at the beginning of the month, and it was just last week, or actually, no, earlier, it was earlier this week. about 3 weeks later that we got around to discussing it. First, I thought it might have been busyness, but maybe I was self sabotaging because
Mm.
maybe on a subconscious level, I wasn't ready to move forward and finish my GD. But you know what? That's coming to me. Maybe the fact that I'm realizing it tells me I'm ready.
The knowledge that you may be self-sabotaging yourself can come from a place of fear. This is a perfect example where the code can be applicable. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. If we
Mm-hmm.
turn to ignorance, it's most often because there's fear. We like homeostasis. We like when things don't change, when conditions in our life don't change. The devil, you know. So this
Mm-hmm.
may be, and I'm glad you've examined this behavior in yourself. This may be an example where that next step means maybe you pass the GED. Well, what does life look like after that? So good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being honest.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it. It popped in my head, and I'm like, that makes more sense than just the thought of a busy schedule.
Emento says, I only know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
The illusion of knowledge is not ignorance, but the refusal to learn. Mm. Mm-hmm. The illusion of knowledge is not ignorance, but the refusal to learn. I once heard, I can't remember where I heard this quote from, but you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequence of ignoring reality. I don't remember where I heard that quote from, but that seems to kind of
Yeah,
line up.
that was something a couple years back I struggled with. I tried to retreat into Harry Potter so much so that I began retreating from reality because a couple years ago the reality of things was scary. A couple years later, I've come to realize exactly that what you just said, that you can retreat from reality but not the consequences. The and it's true, I retreated so much so that the consequences was the program I'm in to better understand living on my own with my uh, with my autism and stuff, with special needs. It became to a point where I was not only withdrawn, but I was snappy, argumentative, among other things, and I almost got expelled from the program. And that almost expulsion was a reality check that I very much needed. And a year later, turned it around, and proud to say on the 29th of May this year, I graduated from the program.
Congratulations.
And in a couple weeks, I am moving into my first house.
I think that deserves some applause, don't you think?
Thank you.
Congratulations. Truly. Good for
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Bodhi says, happily, I am seeking as well as applying knowledge relevant to my life circumstances. In seeking, I find more often than not, knowledge is not absolute and is in a state of evolution, albeit even a slow pace. The knowledge we have today is different than that of 100 years ago. However, the stimulus is the same. Agreed. Agreed. I think it's quite profound. Memento says, change is health. As we become complacent, we become bored, but we also become a danger to ourselves and others. What's that they say? Idle hands are the devil's playthings. All right, folks, thank you for this. This has been great. Let's move on to the next slide. This is pillar 3, self-discipline. Self-discipline requires an immediate reframe because the word carries baggage that obscures what it actually means in this tradition. Most people encounter the word discipline and think of restriction, grinding through things you don't want to do, punishment, denial, suppression. This is not what this pillar is. Self-discipline in Jedi realism concerns mastery of self, and mastery, properly understood, is liberation. A musician who has mastered their instrument is freed by their years of practice. They can play anything. Self-discipline gives you the freedom to respond to life rather than merely react to it. The undisciplined person is at the mercy of every passing impulse, every emotional weather system, every circumstance that pushes against them. The disciplined person has choices. So if it's so important, why does it come third? The ordering of the 3 pillars is deliberate and wise. You need the Force, a genuine orientation towards something larger than your ego, before the hard work of self-confrontation becomes sustainable. Without that grounding, discipline collapses into mere willpower, which is fragile and finite, as we discussed earlier. And you need knowledge, honest understanding of your own patterns, before you can work on them effectively. Self-discipline without the first 2 pillars is rules without roots. With them, it becomes something steadier, something that survives difficulty. Though the first line of the Jedi Code can be confusing at times, it's important to remember that the Jedi path does not ask you to be emotionless. It asks you to understand your emotions deeply enough that they don't make your decisions for you. Anger, fear, grief, longing, these are information. And there is no ignorance, there is knowledge. Knowledge and information, best friends. The discipline is in learning to feel them without being consumed by them, to recognize what they're pointing at without immediately acting what they are demanding. Integration rather than suppression. Your emotions are tools that you can use to inform you about the situation. Your patience and discipline can teach you how to act in terms of response rather than react. A Jedi does not externalize the source of their difficulty. You are not in control of everything that happens to you. You are in complete control of how you respond. That distinction between what happens to you and what you do with it is the entire ballgame. The moment you locate the source of your difficulty entirely outside yourself, you've given away your agency. Jedi self-discipline insists on reclaiming it. The body and the mind are not separate. How you treat your physical self, whether you move, how you sleep, what you consume, whether you rest, directly affects every dimension of practice. The body is the instrument. Neglecting it while pursuing spiritual development is like trying to play music on a guitar with no strings. And as Apprentice L has admitted, I have been having too much sugar and too many carbs. I am in the process of trying to change that behavior, but I have been neglecting that part of my body. And so it's affected my mind because I've been thinking about it, punishing myself for it. That's interrupted my meditation. Perhaps the most important practical insights this pillar offers: consistency is worth far more than intensity. The 5-hour practice session that lasts a week is worth less than 10 minutes of meditation that lasts a decade. Dramatic gestures of discipline are far less valuable than small, sustainable practices done every single day. Where is self-mastery actually built? Keep your commitments to yourself. Do the unremarkable thing reliably, in the absence of anyone watching. Harbarter says to keep the body in good health is duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear. Omar says we're in that together. I feel like everybody Everybody understands what it's like to indulge carbohydrates. When's the last time you had too much steak? But man, those carbs, they just get you. A quote from Master Yoda: Grief in the galaxy, is there? Oh, yes. Oceans of it, worlds. And darkness? There you see. Darkness, darkness everywhere, and a few stars, a few points of light. If no plan there is, no fate, no destiny, no providence, no force, then what is left? Nothing but our choices, hmm? We come back now to the image we started with. A tripod. Remove any single leg and everything falls. The force, without knowledge and self-discipline, becomes passive mysticism, connection without the understanding or the practice to act from it. We saw this in Anakin, perhaps the most force-attuned Jedi in history, brought down by a lack of self-discipline and a gap in knowledge that others were able to exploit. If you guys recall, we're going to hold the questions for now, Reinhardt, but we'll get to you.
I it isn't a question about this. I was in the middle of writing 2 slides ago in the blue. Can we go back real quick so I can finish, if that's
Sure,
okay with everyone?
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I was writing the part about the consistency.
Consistency is worth far more than
Yes.
intensity. Mhm. A good time for everybody to have a drink of water, to take a deep breath in. And I'm going to get to Rebel Scum's comment. As a martial artist, self-discipline is something that grows with you. As you move through whatever it is you are attempting, a discipline is your mind being structured to become what you are practicing. The more you practice, as you mentioned, the more free you become. After years of practice, I no longer need to think about what I need to do. I just do it. This holds true with anything you wish to become knowledgeable about. The only way through is to go through it. Wisdom plays a hand here as well. Without it, you can't see what all of your sacrifices will amount to. At least that's how I see it. I really appreciate that. I really like that concept of, wisdom and the sacrifice piece. I think that's really insightful. I I was trying to play with the language when I wrote this thing, where specifically like this idea that practice frees you, right? Like, oh, I think some people might take away, well-meaning people might take away, oh, so it frees me, so I don't need to practice anymore. It's not necessarily what we're saying, right? You never want to drop the practice. But if you do, it's not a position of shame. It's not a point of shame. Rather, it's not that it frees you from practice, but if it frees you from feeling like practice is a thing that was constraining you.
We're good. Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't want to practice. I get to practice. I think that's the difference. Harbarter says, sitting outside at night. Clarity doesn't come from realizing darkness needing light, but realizing you gain clarity in the darkness. Interesting. Harbarter, can you expand on that? I want to make sure that I'm understanding. All right. So returning to, we saw this in Anakin, perhaps the most force-tuned Jedi in history, brought down by a lack of self-discipline and a gap in knowledge that others were able to exploit. Right? If you guys recall in the movies, Anakin was promised the ability to extend life, even overcome death, which of course wasn't really a thing. I mean, I think if you go into like the legends, that might have been a thing, but as we saw in the movies, you can extend your life, but you can't necessarily not die. Palpatine saw that, tricked Anakin. Anakin didn't have the self-discipline to recognize that he was, probably not entering a very healthy relationship with Chancellor Palpatine. He did not warn his fellow Jedi, or rather, when Mace Windu was going to kill Palpatine, Anakin prevented that. That's a lack of self-discipline, of emotional discipline. And that happened because, sure, the self-discipline piece, but also the gap in knowledge. Back to the Yoda quote, the implication was that the stars in space countered the darkness. Ah, I see. I see. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't piecing that with the quote. Knowledge without the force and self discipline becomes intellectual arrogance. Understanding without grounding or the discipline to live what is learned. A person who has read everything and changed nothing. Knowledge applied. Wisdom, right? Self discipline without force and knowledge becomes rigid rule following, control without wisdom or purpose to direct it, willpower in service of nothing. When all three are genuinely present, and when you are oriented towards something larger than yourself, consistently learning and doing the work on your own character, a Jedi you will be. The three pillars are not a curriculum you complete, but they are a structure you return to again and again at different stages of the path, finding each time that you understand them differently because you have changed. And we come to our final reflection. Without self-discipline, our knowledge remains theoretical, and our potential is left entirely unrealized. The three questions are: self-discipline is described as liberation rather than restriction. Where in your life is the lack of discipline actually limiting your freedom? Choices are you not able to make because you haven't built the capacity to make them? That's question one. Question two, emotional regulation asks you to feel without being consumed. Think of a recent moment when an emotion made a decision for you. What did peace, not suppression, but actual peace, require in that situation? And number three, consistency over intensity. What is one small, unsexy daily practice you could begin this week that would build something meaningful over time? What gets in the way of starting and maintaining it? I think of these three, I like number three the most because that's where consistency is found, not in the big changes and shifts, but rather in the small daily efforts. So, what are some small daily efforts anybody here could take up that would consist of, again, quote, it's not sexy, it's not fun, but it's meaningful. What's one action you could take over time that would help? And what gets in the way of you starting that first step?
So, on the first question, so one choice I am not able to control slash make because I am working on building the capacity and the self discipline, but I'm still working on it. Is currently my mom is my medical and financial guardian. We've been waving off the medical side, but she still makes the decisions as far as like she still regulates the bank account and I make the decisions on what I spend my money on my paycheck, but she still holds the bank account due to a fact of in the past when I have had control of the bank card, I have used it and a couple times I've overdrawn it. Hmm. And as for the second question, something actually happened today. Excuse me. So this morning, after I got up and as I was getting ready, um, one of the things I'm working on is a plan, uh, for my house moving forward. Chris, who was helping me with it, knocked on my door this morning as I was getting ready. I answered it, and instead of doing peace, I let my emotion make the decision. I was very short and honestly a little bit rude, and so peace in that situation would have been the requirement would have been to open the door, calmly greet him, ask him, "How can I help you?" and then let him know in a calm, respectful manner that I'm actually running short on time as I gotta go meet with my mother. But I won't be on long. Can we discuss this when I get back? And that's what peace would have required. And I guess when it's one small unsavory practice I could begin, that would build something meaningful. I mean, not really unsavory in the way that's bad, but unsavory as in it's going to be difficult is something I'm going to do my best to do is practice humility. It's unsavory because it's not going to be easy, but it's something I'm going to do my best and I'm going to begin starting tomorrow.
Why not today?
Okay, froze.
The just in case you didn't hear
Can
it.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you.
I think
My
I.
question for you was why not today?
What?
You mentioned starting humility, practicing starting tomorrow. So my question to you is why not today?
Oh, for me, the day is almost over. It's currently going on 7 p.m.
Hmm. So maybe the humility you can practice is towards yourself, being kind to you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I could start. Yeah, okay. So today I'll start with myself, and tomorrow I'll start practicing with others.
And that's the way of the Jedi. We start with ourselves, we move on to our community. And if we have some juice in the tank left, we go even further.
Yes,
Good for you. Well done.
thank you.
You're welcome. Harbarter says, is self-discipline liberation or is self-discipline a path to liberation? I think it's a path to liberation. I think it's a path to liberation because self-discipline is a journey. This whole thing is a journey. And who's to say how good at self-discipline anybody is? If my version of self-discipline is walking when I might not have, being kinder when I might not have, uh, watching too much news when I might otherwise have. I think it's a journey to freedom. Is peace required for emotional regulation or productive channeling of the emotion? I don't think we need to feel complete internal peace to regulate ourselves. I think, because this is falling under the umbrella of self-discipline, I can recognize that maybe I am not completely emotionally regulated and still find a way towards being productive with my emotions. Um, and not only that, but I think part of being a Jedi is using our emotions constructively. So even the destructive emotions, while the code says there is no emotion, there is peace, I don't think that means we're not allowed to have emotions. Rather, that when we have emotions, we should strive towards peace. I can be angry and use that anger constructively. For example, if I'm angry and maybe I decide to go to the gym, that's a constructive use of my anger rather than a destructive use of it. That result will lead me to come closer to peace. So I think peace is a state that we are striving towards rather than something we can realistically maintain all the time. Life is complicated. Life is busy. We're not always going to be in a peaceful state. I think that's just the human condition. It would be beautiful to think that we could just, all go off into the mountains and meditate all the time and reach enlightenment. It's a beautiful thought, but not necessarily a realistic one for everybody. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Bodhi
I
says,
speak on.
give 1 second. I just want to make sure other people get airtime as well. But
Yeah.
please do hold on to your question because I do want to hear it. Bodhi says, for me, regular meditations, it's a work in progress. The more regular and often, not necessarily long, the more mindful I behave. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like taking 3 steps a day instead of running a 5K marathon. I have observed that the 3 steps, although much slower, are more deliberate, secure, and done with confidence, presumably because of the narrower focus. I completely agree. It also helps us dive into ourselves and ask, what am I currently capable of? Capable, not quite the right word, but what am I able to give right now to my practice? And so, yeah, for some people, maybe they meditate for 30 minutes. Other people might meditate for 5. The question of self-discipline, I think, for this specific topic lies within the consistency of the practice. As we say, 3 minutes of meditation done regularly is better than 3 hours of meditation done for a week. Rebel Scum says, even priests and other religious leaders struggle with emotions and peace. It's okay to fall off the path as long as your discipline puts you back on solid footing. Absolutely. That's part of self-acceptance, right? Falling off the path and then being kind to yourself, showing compassion to yourself when you choose to get back on it. For those that may not know, I've actually left IJF before. I fell off the path due to something traumatic that happened to me in my past. And here I am again. The falling off the path and getting back up onto it is part of what makes us Jedi. It's the recognition that we are imperfect human beings, striving to do better for ourselves, our families, for our communities. Falling off the path and getting back on it, there is nothing more Jedi than that. The recognition of returning. So let there be no shame when we fall off the path. Let there be peace, calm, recognition, self-kindness when we return to the path, and a celebration when we do. Rhino, did you want to go ahead?
So something you were speaking about that something that popped in my head was that how I view the Jedi Code and the whole emotion thing is that something I'm trying to work on as we go through this is it's fine to have emotions. The point is like the second question here, not let them take over. Find the peaceful solution in the situation.
Absolutely. We're still humans. We have emotions. We're not sold separately.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We are
That's
not sold
something.
separately.
Yeah, that's something I think, as you were speaking about the Jedi Council of Old during the movies, that's something I think some of them forgot. Like when they spoke with Anakin. Anakin was as human as the rest of them. He had emotions, and because they grew, at least in my opinion, cold and detached, it didn't help matters. Things spiraled, and Vader came.
In this, for a moment, draws from Stoicism, actually. The Stoics talked about being free from passion. And the old version of the word passion had to do with, now we think of it as, oh, I'm passionate for something. I'm passionate for a person. I want to be romantic with them. But the old version of the word passion, the old meaning, was heavy emotion, not emotion, heavy emotion, free from passion rather than free from emotion, which means I regulate myself in such a way that I do not allow my emotions to decide my judgment. I do not allow them to cloud me, to make poor choices because of them. And oftentimes we think of this as negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear. We can make silly decisions because of positive emotions as well. What do you think you might do if you win the lottery? The first thing you might do is go out and buy, 6 cars. I don't know. But the idea is the same. If I'm overjoyed at something, it's equally possible that I make a decision that is perhaps not the wisest or healthiest for myself or those around me. So it's not to suppress our emotions. Again, it's rather to have peace from making a poor choice. Do not let a temporary emotion decide a permanent decision. I think that's ultimately where we try and land, the middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Omar says, I take 5 minutes before sleep to meditate about my day and how I can improve, even if it is only, as you said, a couple steps that take me to my goal. A couple steps is all it takes. Life is long, and a couple steps turns into an entire journey. And that doesn't mean we can't push ourselves a little bit from time to time, right? To see what we're made of. But at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, this is what self-discipline is. It has more to do with consistency than it does with intensity. Thank you, everybody. This has been excellent, excellent conversation. Let's move forward. This is actually our last slide. And these are 3 of my favorite quotes. It matters which side we choose, even if there will never be more light than darkness, even if there can be no more joy in the galaxy than there is pain. For every action we undertake, for every word we speak, for every life we touch, it matters. I don't turn toward the light because it means someday I'll win some sort of cosmic game. I turn toward the light because it is the light. That's from Master Qui-Gon Jinn. The second quote from Tara Sinub. The value of moving slowly is that one can always clearly see the way ahead. And a Jedi parable from the legends. Urgency without panic. Action without thoughtlessness. These are the way of the Jedi. I appreciate you all listening. I appreciate you all attending. And may the Force be with you.
May the force be with you.